Alright, hi everyone. In this video we are going to learn how to add tables to our web pages. So we've been talking about how HTML is used to structure the content on a page. A lot of times the content that we want to display calls for a table to be used. And we use a table when we have tabular data to display. I think you all know what tabular data is. It's data that is displayed in or that can be organized into rows and columns. So anyways, let's dive in here. Let's create a file inside of our HTML folder here. So go ahead and right click on your HTML folder here in Sublime Text, choose new file. Let's go ahead and save it. So we'll do Control S right away and we'll save it as html-tables.html, just like that. Press the save button and away we go. Here's our new file, and we'll go ahead and use the HTML snippet trick. So I'll type in HTML. You guys are probably all getting used to this by now, and I'll hit tab right away, so that'll put in the boilerplate content for us. And then I want to indent the head and body elements, so I'm going to select those lines 3 through 8 and then hit tab to indent those. Let's go ahead and put in a title here. Let's just call it HTML tables. And we'll also put in an H1 element inside the body, so we have a nice heading at the top of the page. So we'll put an H1 element in here and type in H1 and hit tab, and we can make it say the same thing as the title, HTML tables. Okay, now we're ready to go. Okay, when you want to add a table to your web page, you're going to start by adding a table element. So right underneath the H1 element here, I'm going to type in table and press tab. There we go. So our whole entire table is going to go in between the opening table tag and the closing table tag. So we've got a lot of stuff to put inside of the table element. So I'm going to split them apart and put the opening tags and closing tags on their own line, and then I'll indent all the contents that we add to it. Okay, let's go ahead and add a row to this table. To add a row to a table, you use a TR element. So I'll press TR and hit tab here just like this, and now we won't see anything displayed in this table. I have to add some cells. So I'm going to go ahead and split apart the opening and closing TR tags like that, and let's put in 2 cells here. So to put in a cell, we use a TD element, and you might think TC for table cell, but TD actually stands for table data. So it's these things that have the actual data for the table in them, and they act as the cells or the columns for our table. So I'm going to go ahead and add a TD element. So I'll press TD and tab, and Sublime Text will put in the syntax for me. And then let's just put in a little bit of content here, and I'll go ahead and add another TD element inside this row. So I'm going to add a sibling to our first TD, and in the content I'll make it say world just like that, and now I should have something to look at in the browser. I'm going to press Control S, and then I'll go ahead and open this up in the browser just like this. So I'll right click on the background and choose Open in Browser, and over here is our table. Now you can't really tell that this is a table. Let me do something to make it a little more obvious that it's a table. So let's go back over to the code here, and let's add an attribute to the table element. I'm going to add a border attribute, and let's set its value equal to 1, just like that. So I'll save this, Alt-Tab over to the browser, and hit refresh. And now you can see a border. You can see that there's 1 row and 2 cells, and the border helps us see that. Okay, let's make a few changes here. What I want to do is I'm going to add a few more cells to this row, but let's go ahead. Let's actually leave the first cell in this row empty. So I'm going to clear out hello, and then let's go to the second row, that second TD element. I'm sorry, the second cell in that row, and let's make that say sun for Sunday. And then let's go ahead and add another TD element and make it say Mon for Monday, and I think you see the pattern that's starting to develop here. We'll go Tuesday and add another one for Wednesday, and another one for Thursday, and another one for Friday, and another one for Saturday. Just like that. Okay, let's just quickly see what our table looks like. So I'm going to do Control S, Alt Tab over to the browser, and hit refresh here. There we go. So you can see the empty column there, and then we've got the day names for the rest of that row. Okay, now I'm going to do a little bit of copying and pasting in our code here. So we want to add some more rows here, and I'm going to sort of cheat. Instead of typing it all in over again, I'm just going to copy that whole entire row. And here's where your formatting comes into play. Because the code is formatted nice and neat, it's real easy for me to select the whole entire row. So just go ahead and copy that row. And what I want you to do is put that row paste the row right underneath itself. So we're going to add another row here. So I'll press Control V to paste it, and there's my second row. Now I want to clear out some this data here. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to leave. I'm going to clear out all these cells in the second row. Okay, just hang with me here. I know this is a little bit confusing, but whoops, make sure you don't delete any syntax that you need like I just did there. So here I've got an empty row. It's got the same number of cells as the first row. What I'm going to do here is I'm just going to go to the first cell, the first TD element inside that second row, and I'm going to make it say breakfast. Okay, just like that. All right, so we'll go ahead and save this. We'll Alt Tab over to the browser and hit refresh, and you can see now our table is starting to shape up here. So Alt Tab back over to Sublime Text, and let's go ahead and copy and paste that second row again. We're going to add a few more rows with this copy paste approach. So copy the whole entire row, starting with the opening TR tag and including the closing TR tag, and then press Control C to copy that. And then I'm going to put my cursor right underneath the row, just like that, and then I'll press Control V to paste. And this is gonna, let's change the first cell in this row to say lunch, just like that. And let's do it one more time here. So go ahead and find the end of the last row that we have there, that closing TR tag, put your cursor right underneath it and do Control V to paste again. And now let's change that first cell to say dinner here. Okay, I'll do Control S, and we'll check it out in the browser. Now you can see there's kind of an explosion of tags and elements inside of our document. So HTML documents can get to be quite complicated. It's only a simple little table, but look at all the tags that we had to add to create that table. So anyways, let's save this, Control S and Alt Tab over to the browser so we can check it out. And here's what our table is starting to look like right now. Let's set the width of the first column. So go back over to Sublime Text. Let's go back to our first row right here. And let's just add a width attribute to the first cell inside the first row. So go ahead and find that opening TD tag. For me, it's on line 10 here. And we'll set the width equal to, let's just set it to 200 and see what it looks like right here. So go ahead and press Control S to save your changes, and then Alt Tab over to the browser and hit refresh, and you can see that the width now of that first row is, the first column is 200 pixels. So by setting the width on one of the cells, it'll set the width for all of the cells in that column automatically. Let's add some padding to our table. So padding is basically just breathing room to put some space around all the cells. So we'll go back to Sublime Text here, and we want to add an attribute to the table element. So go to the opening table tag. We've already got a border attribute. Let's add an attribute called cell padding, and we'll set it equal to, I think, 6. We'll see what that does here. So if I save that, Control S, Alt Tab back to the browser, hit refresh, you can see that there's now some breathing room in our table here by setting the cell padding attribute. Now I want to show you a crazy cool little trick that you can do in Sublime Text. These cells here, that say Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday are really our column headers. When you want to create a row full of common column headers, you don't want to use a TD element, you actually want to use a TH element. TH stands for table header. So what we're going to do is I'm going to show you a trick in Sublime Text to change all of these TD tags here from TD to TH, which is we want them to be displayed as column headers. So we want to use TH elements. So here's a trick. Go ahead and just go to the first TD tag in that first row and just select TD. So I just dragged through those two letters T and D, and you can see how Sublime Text finds all the other occurrences of T and D and highlights them for you. What I want you to do here is press Control and D at the same time and see how that selects the next occurrence of TD. So I've actually got two selections here now. Press Control D another time and again and keep pressing the Control D until you get to the last TD in that first row. So now I've got all of these TDs selected. I can change them all at once by hitting the backspace button and then type in TH for table header, and what you'll see there is that it updated all of those. So Sublime Text allows you to have multiple selections, and that trick that I showed you comes in handy when you want to make changes. So you can select something and then press Control D, and it'll find the next occurrence of whatever you selected, and it'll select that too. Great little trick. You just have to be careful that you don't accidentally include the wrong characters when you're doing your selection. Okay, let's save our changes. Control S and Alt Tab over to the browser, and let's refresh here, and now you can see that the table headers are showing up as bold here. Let's go ahead and add a row at the top of this table that spans across all the cells here. Let me show you what I mean here. So I'm actually going to add another row to the beginning of this table, so I want to put my cursor right there, right before the first row, and I'll add a new row here. I'll call it TR, and I'm going to split apart the opening and closing TR tags, and I'm going to add a TD element, and so I'll press TD and tab. Now I want this cell to span across all the columns in the table. So if you look down below here, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 columns in our table right now. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to add an attribute called call span to the first cell in the first row. Call span, and let's set it equal to 8. So we want this cell to span across all 8 columns in the table. And let's put some content in here. Let's make it say week 1. Just like that. Okay, so go ahead and press Control S to save it, Alt Tab over to the browser and hit refresh here, and you can see that now I've got a cell that spans across all 8 columns in the table. Let's fix this a little bit here. Let's go ahead and center this text and make it bold, and our table will start to shape up here. So back here in Sublime Text, let's go ahead and add another attribute to this TD that we're working on in the first row. So let's set the align attribute equal to center, and that's going to align the text to the center of the cell. And then what I want to do here is we want to make this week 1 be big and bold. Let's use an H3 element for that. So I'm going to wrap that week 1 inside of an H3 element. So I split apart the opening and closing TD tags, and I'm going to wrap the content week 1 inside of an H3 element, just like that. And here's the closing H3 element, just like that. I'll save my changes, press Control S, and then Alt Tab over to the browser and hit refresh, and here's what your table should start to look like. So you can kind of see how we're building and formatting this table. Now my idea here was to build a little table that let you keep track of when you ate your meals for a given week. So here's a little challenge for you. I want you to go ahead and make your table look like this right here. So I want you to hunt down all the TD elements and put yeses in the ones for each meal. So for example, we're going to say that you had breakfast on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. So go ahead and find the row that you need to update and make sure it says yes for breakfast for Monday, Tuesday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Okay, then go down to the row that has the lunch cells in it, and let's just say you ate lunch on just Sunday and Saturday. So go ahead and figure out which TD elements within that row you need to put the content yes into. And then for dinner, we're just going to assume that you ate dinner on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So your job is to go to the row that for the dinner and find which cells you need to put yes into so that it indicates that you had dinner on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So that's your coding challenge for this lesson.